Welcome back to the About Manchester podcast. This week we speak to Jo Taylorson and David Gill from Kingsland Drinks. Jo is head of marketing and product management and David is a master of wine. Enjoy. Brilliant. So could you just give the audience a little bit of a background on Kingsland Drinks, please?
Yeah, of course. So we're the largest independent supplier of wine in the UK. We're based in Manchester, actually in Earlham. We've been producing wines and spirits at our site for 60 plus years now. Back in the 60s, we were actually owned by the co-op, when the co-op had its own manufacturing arms. And in the 60s, we were the first people to import bulk wine into the UK. So we're kind of quite historical. We've been around a long time. We're still, like I say, one of the largest suppliers of wine and other drinks in the UK. We've had quite a few different firsts. We worked on reopening the Manchester Ship Canal, so a lot of the wine that we bring in actually comes on boat to the UK, and then we worked on reopening the Ship Canal so the ships could come all the way to Earlham. We were one of the companies who first established screw caps, which was back in 2002, which is quite amazing now that it was seen as quite a negative thing at first. And we were one of the first people with Tesco. We did a project called Unwind. So we were core in establishing that as a closure in the UK. And now we have a single site operation. We work 24/7. We've got 9 production lines that can do anything from bottles to bag and box to pouches. We can do carbonation. We pack spirits in multiple different sizes. And that's all about what we do here. And then we also import and distribute wines on behalf of a number of our producers as well that are packed not at Kingsland but packed at source. So we're quite a big operation based in Manchester that I think a lot of people haven't heard of, don't know we're here, but we're a big employer of the Northwest.
Fantastic. And just to pick up on what you said there, why was the screw top, I don't know if David wants to come in on this, but why was the screw top so controversial?
Well, it was one of those things, the accidents of history. When screw cap bottles were first, when people came up with the idea of putting a screw cap in a bottle, the people who did that decided that they needed mass volume to get it going. You can't just start with a project, but it's expensive. So they wanted to go to the mass market. So a lot of wine, when it was first packed under screw cap, was done in the massive litre or litre and a half bottles in places like Italy or Spain. So it was a convenience thing, big volume, and of course it was cheap wine. So the problem became the association was screw cap cheap wine. So when you start to look at doing that for more mainstream wines, better quality wines, the resistance was there from, oh, well, no, if it's under screw cap, it can't be good. And of course, you've also got all the emotional and tactile things of opening a bottle with a corkscrew and cutting your hand and all that kind of stuff. And so it was one of those things where the perception was, if it was under screw cap, it was cheap. The reality is, actually, for most modern wines which are ready to drink, especially for aromatic whites, it's almost the perfect closure, and it's a lot more convenient. And now, of course, it's almost impossible to. Well, it's not impossible, but a lot of people actually actively want screw cap rather than corks. And in the on trade, in the hospitality trade, of course, it's a lot easier for staff to, rather than to get the thing out. So it's a convenience thing for staff. You don't have to do so much training and all that kind of stuff. So originally cheap wine, now it's completely naturally accepted.
That's very interesting. Thank you. So back to Jo, at the start of 2021, you put out some trends that you thought you'd see in the industry in terms of wine. Have you seen these kind of materialise in the early start of the year?
So certainly for bag and box, and that was something that actually a lot of new customers were driven into the bag and box category at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And I think from a I don't have research to back this up, but really from a consumer perspective, I imagine that was because a number of retailers put limits on the amount of units you could buy at any one point in time. So a bag-in-box, you obviously get more volume for one unit. Also, I think there was an increase in drinking at home. So, people who may well not have bought wine to drink at home before, who would normally drink in pubs and restaurants, were starting to delve into buying wine to drink at home. So we've definitely seen an increase in that. And what's great about that is a lot of new customers were driven into the bag-in-box category and are staying. So it's just led them to trial a format that they weren't used to drinking before. And I think a little bit similar to what David said before about screw cap, I think there's a little bit of a misconception that wines in a bag-in-box are inferior quality, and often they're not. And often you can buy the equivalent wine in a bottle or a bag-in-box. And I think driving the new customers into that category has really helped it develop. So I can see that continuing to develop in the longer term. Canned wine and canned drinks, we potentially haven't seen as much growth yet as we would have done, and that's predominantly because they're very occasion led. So, most people would be buying cans of wine or cans of spirit in a mixer to drink when they're, say, traveling somewhere or outside drinking, gathering with friends. And obviously we haven't been able to do that for quite a while now, but I could see an uplift in that happening once restrictions start to ease and people start to socialise in gardens a little bit more, and it's a very convenient, very easy format. So I imagine over coming months that will become quite significant. Sustainability again is always a thing that consumers seem to look out for, and it's really important to any business to be as sustainable as possible. We've very recently launched a brand called The Hidden Sea, and that's something that's really taken off because of the message behind it. So for every bottle we sell, we take 10, the equivalent of 10 plastic bottles out of the oceans and recycle it. And that's been something that has really gained interest from consumers, because you can drink a bottle of wine but also know that you're doing something good for the environment. And I think the other thing was pink Prosecco. So we saw that coming as a trend because it was legal for the first time from the end of last year. We've seen good growth in that, but it's obviously from a base of zero. But I see again that being something that will grow in the summer months once socialising begins again, and we can have drinks with friends. So Prosecco sales haven't been great over the last, say, 12 months as a category. Our Proseccos have done quite well, predominantly because they're a little bit more premium. So I think they've been a bit more of a treat purchase. But I can see pink Prosecco and Prosecco in general doing really well over the summer months.
Excellent. Sounds very, very good. And what impact has the pandemic had on your business? Has it changed what is in demand?
So from our perspective, we supply all sectors of the market in the UK. So we supply retail, online, on trade, so the pubs and restaurants. So from our perspective, we've seen very, very decreased demand from the on-trade sector. The pubs and bars have been kind of sporadically open through the last 12 months. But at the same time, obviously, there's been a significant increase in drinking at home. So the retail side of things has seen a significant spike in demand. So it's been quite up and down. And I really feel for people who are working predominantly in the on-trade sector, because it's been an awful 12 months for that sector of the business. And, we're very lucky that we cover both arms of the UK trade.
Sure.
But yeah, for the on-trade, it's been really unfortunate.
Yeah, and 12 months ago we ran a story and it announced an expansion and a major investment. Has that had any impact during the pandemic, or has that been as successful as you hoped?
So the big investment we did 12 months ago was our canning line. It's done very well, and we've launched a couple of our own brands. So one sort of fusion drink, and one brand called Mix Up, which is a spirits base. So they've both launched and done really well initially. But like I said before, the occasions for canned drinks has been a little bit limited. So probably the sales haven't been as strong as we would have thought if we'd looked back at January 2020.
But into that, things like cans are ideal for travel retail, and the problem is, of course, travel has stopped. So people who would have come into the market for our cans have simply not come into the market because they're basically shut. So that's stormed that slightly. But as I say, as Jo says, we've got new products away. We've created new brands of our own, and that's given us time to sort of test things out and get things moving, which is quite nice.
Excellent. That sounds very exciting. And just finally, have you got what are the plans for the future coming out? Obviously, we've got the roadmap now. What's the future looking like for you guys?
So for us, I mean, we're working on a couple of different sustainability projects at the moment. It's a little bit early to talk about those because we're still in planning, but happy to share more further down the line when we're a little bit closer. And in general for us, just supporting our customers as best we can over like you say, over the roadmap, the reopening of the on-trade, and being there to support our customers and our suppliers as best we can, really.
That's excellent. Thank you. Yeah, cheers, Jo. So on to David. If we could just get an overview of the Rosé Prosecco, if that's possible.
Okay, so Prosecco's been around for quite a long time. A little while ago, I forget exactly when, it must have been early 2000s, Prosecco was, the producers of Prosecco got together and created better rules around where it could be made. Prosecco is actually named after a village right on the Slovenian border, and it's made from a grape variety called Glera, and the areas all around there are the ones where Prosecco can be made. There's a few others as well. So it's a strictly delimited, a bit like champagne in the sense that it can only come from a specific variety or main variety, in this case Glera, and in a particular area. And it's subject to certain rules of production and aging process and all that. So that's quite a fairly recent innovation in terms of its of the control of Prosecco. And then, oddly, perhaps the authorities didn't realise that there was a market for rosé Prosecco. Glera is a white variety, and you can't make pink wine out of a white variety. It just can't be done unless you add something. So they worked with various producers to trial different things, and they've now, in the last year, permitted the production of Prosecco Rosé. So for the first time, that's a controlled DOC, a denominated product from the same region, and it's made from Glera as well, mostly, but with the addition of some Pinot Noir, Pinot Nero in Italian, and that gives it a little bit of a tint of pink colour. And you can adjust your colour quite carefully in the production process. You could have quite a dark one if you wanted, or a slightly lighter one. But the amount of Pinot Noir in particular will give a different flavour profile to the wine. So everybody's pink Prosecco will be slightly different. And then you add in different sugar levels that reside in the wine as well. And you've got some interesting flavours. So that is Corto Melino from our family producer, Borgo Melino. Yeah. And that's a lovely, pale, very fresh, fruity rosé Prosecco. It's only like the white, which is este, as the Italians would say. So this is the white. As you can see, I've already started that one. Is one I began earlier. So this is the white, this is the new pink, and they're both only 11% alcohol. And that's one of the reasons I think Prosecco is actually very popular these days. It's light, it's fresh, it's fruity, and for the most part, and by no means every wine has to be, these are quite low in alcohol. 11% is very quaffable, and they're light, fruity. They're very mild bubbles. They're not sort of aggressive. It's not overly acid. So pink Prosecco is just the natural extension. And actually, it was a bit of an oversight in my view at the time that they didn't actually incorporate that into the original rules for Prosecco.
Brilliant. And what wine trends do you see coming up?
Fizz is growing. Fizz as an everyday product. Obviously, there are still luxury products out there, including some very premium Prosecco as well, champagne, of course. But increasingly in France, there's Crémant, there's different, they're very light fizz products which are made locally under very strict rules, in the same way as champagne, bottle fermented. This is a risk, isn't it? Oh, that made more of a noise than I expected. It's supposed to open with a sigh. Obviously, fizz is on the up and will continue because people have built it into their mainstream drinking. As Joe said, as things open up, stuff like if you're going to meet somebody in the garden, great, you might have a bagging box there, you might have tins there, but I can guarantee what for first time out, people are going to go out and get a whole shed load of decent fizz just to go and have a big celebration together because we've been cooped up for far too long. So I can see fizz being completely, in the nicest possible way, explosive this summer. And then you've got aromatic whites. So we all know about New Zealand Sauvignon, absolutely massive. From every shop sells 2, 3, 4, many brands of New Zealand Sauvignon, but it's in very short supply this year. So there'll be some new trends, I think. Sauvignon from other places, possibly, but also I think other aromatic whites, Riesling, Viognier, Albarino, perhaps, which is perhaps a bit less aromatic. Just there are so many new flavors just waiting to be found out there by the public, which a lot of us in the wine trade have been belting on about for years. But if you're into your regular Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, you're probably not going to change because it's a risk. Wine is expensive, so it's a high risk product. But the quality of flavors available in most supermarkets and retailers now, second to none, and you should be able to find quite good flavors and whites in particular. I think will be all the way this summer.
Excellent. And do you have any Easter wine drinking tips for people in Manchester?
Well, on those lines, good Riesling, 8,000 Lakes Washington State Riesling in Majestic. It's pricey. It's £10 a bottle on a mixed 6 in Majestic. Or you can get the Alsace version from France. Very, very nice from Waitrose at about £11. And then, as I said, Viognier, Neti Viognier Majestic, I think it's about £8, £9. Lots of flavour, brilliant with Thai food, brilliant with Asian dishes, fantastic summer drinking, that kind of stuff. Even with a slightly just crisp, ripe peach, some of these things would go very nicely with as well. So versatile wines, built for food and for flavour. So those would be probably on my list this Easter and summer. And if you want a red, plenty. Baron de Lay, Club Privado, Reserva Rioja, absolutely stunning value. That's a Waitrose wine at about £13. It's worth £10 more than that. It's a brilliant wine.
Excellent, thank you. So I don't know should we try tasting? Should we have a go at that?
I'm already on it, mate.
You're already on it. Let's have a go.
I just like, you heard the bottle pop gently open. You need to keep it a slight pop. Otherwise it goes everywhere. You don't want to waste good wine. But I love the colour of this. It's so pale, light pink, very, very pale, very en vogue, like Provence rosé, if you like, still wines. And then you've got that lovely light raspberry smell. Fresh sherbet raspberry.
It smells lovely. It is lovely, yeah. Yeah, brilliant. And where's this one available from?
Fills the mouth, yeah. Lots of flavour, nice, very gentle fizz. Nothing too harsh or hard. Nice, soft flavours, but fresh and ripe. The key for me is the balance of the wine. You get some wines which are fizz, which can be very, very harsh, very sharp. You get some which are, even a lot of Proseccos, particularly used to be, and probably less so now, used to be a little bit too sweet for me. But this is right on point. I mean, it's brilliant wine. I love this. Delicious.
Excellent. And there's the white as well, I think.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, just white fruit, and I had a bit of this over the weekend, so I've cheated a bit. It was my daughter's birthday, and we had a Zoom on Saturday, so I had to have a little glass of that. So there's a little bit left for later, but the idea of that is just fresh white fruit, and again, that crisp, appley, slightly citrusy character, and just a delight to drink. And again, that light balance, you can drink that as an aperitif to start with hors d'oeuvres. White fish, delicious. This would be fantastic with a sort of a lighter fish soupy kind of thing. I mean, it's not too strong, nothing too strong flavored, but a nice fishy soup, or just a nice piece of sea bream or cod or whatever. Just simple fish flavors, beautiful with the pink. Really, really nice. People tend to think fizz to begin with and then go on to still. No need, sometimes just carry on drinking it, and at 11% you can drink it through a meal.
That's brilliant, thank you guys.
Yeah. And like David said, the Cortemolino wines are absolutely brilliant value for money as well. They're only so they're available in co-op stores, and the white is £7 and the rosé is £8.50. So really good value for money for a slightly more premium prosecco. It's really worth spending that little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you, David.